Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today we are going to be covering trend lines. First thing I'm going to cover is a couple ways that you could be placing your trend lines wrong. Then I'm going to cover the most efficient way to place your trend line. You're going to be pretty mind blown at this because it's a really simple technique. You're going to get to see just how perfect this actually is. And then lastly, just as a bonus, I'm going to share a strategy that you can use by using this technique. And it's very efficient and profitable. And you're actually going to be pretty mind blown at the strategy. So let's get right into the video. Okay, so first thing I want to cover is a couple ways you could be placing your trend lines wrong. So one of the first ways that I see people using trend lines wrong is this sort of placement technique where you're just connecting the very first two highs or lows of a trend. This isn't efficient, and I'll show you why in a second. So the placement style I mean by this is when people are placing, let's say here, right? And then connecting it to the very first high like this, right? This can throw your trends off a lot because, for example, it works here or it doesn't work here, right? Look, the trend's way up here now and you placed it at the very first connecting two highs. But then, for example, it will work in a spot like this, right? Because you're connecting this high and then this high here. So it works here, it doesn't work here. So it's very inconsistent. You can get lucky and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But the good thing is this way I'm gonna show you works every single time, like perfectly. It perfectly shows you the best trend line. Now the second way I see, or I've heard of, and I've seen people talk about placing trend lines this way, it makes a lot of sense when you're looking at it on the chart, but when you're actually doing it live, that's where it just does not work at all. And this is the technique of people say to connect three highs or three lows to make sure it's touching three spots. This works extremely well in theory, right? Let's say you wanted to chart this one here, you connect this high, this high, this high. Okay, look at that. That's a perfect trend line, right? Let's say you wanted to do it over here, you connect this high, you connect this low, say this low, and let's say that low there. Boom, that's three lows, right? Nice. That's one low here, one low there, and then the last low there, right? That's pretty good placement. But here's where a lot of people don't realize the mistake of this trend as well. Let's say you're on the 1 hour. By the time you've placed an efficient trend line, right? From the beginning of the trend to when you finally were able to place the trend line, it's been 11 days. You're telling me you're gonna wait 11 days to be able to place the trend line? And then by the time the 11 days are up, this trend is probably already ended. We might see a reversal, we might see a continue, we might get lucky and get one more trend line touch, but it's very inefficient because you have to wait so long to place the trend line. So I'm gonna show you now the most simple way to place a trend line. But before I show you the best trend line technique, if you're looking for a broker to sign up with, recently I started trading with Fintura. They are associated with Hanko Trade. So if you liked Hanko Trade as much as I did and you loved using and trading Hanko Trade daily, weekly, monthly, however much you used Hanko Trade, Fintura is going to be just as good, offering some of the great benefits that you got with Hanko Trade. So if you were a fan of Hanko Trade like I was, go ahead and sign up with Fintura. I'll have a link in my description below. They're unregulated, so it's super fast and efficient to sign up with them. You can literally get started trading after finishing this video if you wanted to. And I would highly recommend that because I'm going to show you a really good strategy at the end of this video. I think you guys are going to really like it. So you might want to sign up with a broker and, get started practicing this live. You can practicing demo if you want. So if you want to sign up with Fintura, there will be a link in my description and in the comments as well. Okay, so now I'm going to tell you the most efficient way to place your trend line. Super simple. So obviously, first things first, you're going to need an MACD. This is going to help determine the true highs and lows. Also going to help you efficiently place your trend lines. So the MACD I use is just called the moving average convergence divergence. You just look that up. You go to indicators here, right here. This is the one that I use. And then I just take off the lines, basically. Just come over here to style, take that MACD and signal lines off. We're just here to use the histogram. And this just shows you the true highs and lows. So once you got that done, the most simple way to place your trend line is first point, always, no matter how you're placing trend line, the first point has to start at the beginning of the trend. So this is the beginning of the trend here. So we're just going to leave it there for now. So the requirement, place a perfect trend line. This. Now the second point has to go where the low MACD is stronger than the previous MACD. Put this in simpler terms, I'm going to explain it visually here. So here's the first point. So we connect it. If we wanted to place it on the second point, this would have to be bigger than the previous one. Since it was not, we move to the next one. The next one bigger than the previous? No, it's smaller. And then this next one bigger than the previous. So that is going to be our second point. So we take this section here. I know that might be a little bit hard to understand for somebody who's trying to grasp this for the first time. So this point right here, larger than the previous. So that's where we're going to place it. I go back and show you before. This low here was not larger than the previous. Okay, so then I bring it to here. This low here was not larger than the previous. And then this low here was larger than the previous. So this is where we're going to connect our second point. Connect it to that right there. And that's our trend. Very simple. So I'll go and I'll show you now with this downtrend. Same thing here. You take the very top point, very highest point, which would be here. This doesn't count because that was not a true high. There's only 2 MACD candles. You need at least 3 for it to be a true high. So this was the highest true high right here. So that's our first point. Was this second high larger than the previous? No, it was not. So you bring it here. Was this high larger than the previous? Yes, it was. So that is where we will put our second point on the MACD. As you can see, when you connect it, so we get that perfect MACD line. We just do that over and over again. I'm gonna move a little bit faster now. So if you haven't caught on yet, just feel free to rewind the video. I'm gonna move a little bit faster. So we take our next point here. Was the next low larger than the previous? Yes, it was. So we can actually go ahead and just connect it straight up like that. And as you can see, look how perfect this placement is. Touch, 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 break, touch back in, and so on and so on. And if you look back, just how perfect this is. And you can go to any pair you want and try this out. You'll see just how perfect it is. So even when things get messy like this is a hard trend to kind of pay attention to. Even when it gets messy, you can still have really good trendline placement. So for example, this is our first highest point here. So that's our first point we're going to connect it to the top of that one. Where does our second one go? Well, let's see. Was the next high bigger than the previous? No, it wasn't. So we move it here. Was this high bigger than the previous? Yes, it was. So this is where we place our trend line. And as you can see, this is the most efficient way because it shows the fake outs here. But overall, we get the most efficient touches here, even leading into this point here. Okay, and now let's show you in real time, because this is all, good to look at, after the trends have already played out. But what does this look like in real time? Because this is most important, show you how to do this in real time. And that's why this is so efficient, because you can do it efficiently in real time. A lot of the other trend line placements, you have to wait for the trend to play out for you to actually place it. So here, with this way of placement, so much more efficient, way better. I'm going to show you. What we can do is we can click back to a random pair. It works on US 30, for example. You can change up the timeline too. You go to the 1 minute, go back here, what we got going on. It works on every time frame. You don't have to worry about specifically the 1 hour or whatever. So first point, bottom of the trend, right? Always gonna be the first point, is always gonna be the bottom or the top of the trend. Was this second point larger than the previous? No, it was not. So we're not gonna place it there. This point was larger than the previous point. So we're gonna place it there. That is going to be our trend line. As you can see, if we let this play out, right? This is the most efficient way, because as you can see, now we have that breakout here, right? And as you can see, now we have it actually in this channel where it's coming up and it's tapping into this trend line. That's how strong this trend line is. If we placed it, think about it, if we placed it on the very first two like that, we would have had this. And look how messy this trend line is. It doesn't even make sense, right? But here we have tap in, break, right? Came down, taps in again. So this is the most efficient way to place your trend line. Now, as a bonus, like I said, I'm going to show you a strategy and how you can actually use this to make profit trading, just using this technique alone. So if you literally only have an understanding of this technique only, you can literally trade just using this technique alone. So how this works is, for example, you place your trend line correct way, right? Right? Because we have the first point here. This point was higher, so that's where we connect it through here to here. That's going to be the second point, first point, second point. That runs straight through. Now, all you have to do is, if you're on the 1 hour, divide it by 4. That gives us the 15-minute. This is going to be our lower time frame. So we jump to the 15-minute. If we were doing this live, this was our first point here. Our second point, we connected here. So now all you have to do is do the exact same thing again, but for this trend. So as the trend is coming back up to tap in, you're just going to place the exact same trend line. So bottom of the trend, right? Bottom of the trend here. Was this bigger? No. Was that bigger? Yes, it was bigger. You place it there. And when you have a break of that trend line, you take a sell. You take a sell because not only are you tapping into this trend line on the higher time frame, most of you are looking to take sells at the top of the trend line anyways. So if you have that extra confirmation of jumping the lower time frame and playing out that exact same trade, you're going to get into the trades more efficiently. We'll show you, for this example here as well. So as we have price coming up to tap back in, instead of just taking a sell right at the top, you can get in more efficiently by placing that first point, right? First point is there. Is the second point bigger? Yes, it is bigger. So you connect it through, right? Look how perfect this trend line is now. And what you can do if you really want to actually get into a nice trade, price typically comes back to where the breaks are. So as you can see, here was the break. So if you select that break, price typically likes to come back and tap into this area where the break was of the trend. So you can take a sell right on that line, stops above obviously, and then get some really nice risk to reward trades. Very simple strategy. Go ahead and test this out on the markets yourself. Like I said, if you want to practice this, demo account, live account, sign up with Fintura. Link will be in the description. Hopefully you enjoyed this quick video. Hopefully that will build a better foundation for your trading.